When a young girl vanished without a trace during a simple family picnic, no one could have imagined that 6 years later, her determined cousin's discovery of a hidden path in the forest would unravel a dark secret and ignite a desperate fight for justice, hope, and healing. The sun filtered gently through the leafy canopy overhead, casting golden speckles on the forest floor. It was the kind of day people dream about, warm but breezy, with birdsong dancing in the air and the scent of pine and wildflowers mixing like nature's own perfume. The Hartley family had chosen this spot for their annual spring picnic for years, a hidden meadow just off Evergreen Trail, tucked between thick oaks and a gentle brook that shimmered in the light. Blankets were spread across the grass, baskets brimmed with homemade pies and sandwiches, and the air rang with laughter and clinking lemonade jars. Jake Hartley, 12 years old and lanky for his age, sat cross-legged near the edge of the clearing, watching his younger cousin Lily dart around in a sunlit frenzy of joy. She was a whirlwind in pink, a wild giggle, untamed golden curls, and scuffed white sneakers kicking up petals as she chased butterflies no one else could see. She was 8, fearless, and full of questions. That morning, she had told Jake she planned to catch a ferry before the day was over. Jake had smiled, teasing her with stories of forest trolls and talking trees. They always made up tales together. It was their thing. Their parents chatted under the shade, passing around jars of iced tea and paper plates, too caught up in conversation to notice Lily straying closer to the tree line. But Jake noticed. He always noticed her. She was more like a little sister than a cousin to him, and he felt protective of her, though he never said it out loud. When she twirled just beyond the ferns and waved at him before vanishing into the green, Jake didn't panic. She'd done that before, always coming back within minutes, cheeks flushed with adventure. This time felt no different, until it did. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Jake stood up, brushing grass from his jeans, his eyes narrowing at the silent gap in the trees where Lily had disappeared. "Lily," he called, his voice half teasing, half concerned. No answer. "Okay, Fairy Queen, come out. You win." Still nothing. The air felt heavier now. Too quiet. A subtle shift, like the forest had taken a breath and held it. "Mom," Jake said as he walked over to the adults, his voice trembling slightly. "Have you seen Lily?" The words snapped everyone out of their weekend days. Chairs scraped, drinks were set down, and the playful mood turned brittle. Within moments, everyone was on their feet, calling her name, combing through the trees, checking behind every bush and rock, every hollowed trunk and creek bed. Jake ran until his lungs burned, retracing the last place he saw her, shouting her name until it felt like the sound would tear from his throat. What they found was not Lily, but a single pink ribbon, snagged on a thorny branch about shoulder height, fluttering slightly in the breeze like a fragile flag. It was hers. Jake recognized it immediately. His knees buckled as he reached for it, a hollow pit forming in his chest. The forest loomed around him, dark and endless, like it had swallowed her whole. Authorities were called. Search teams scoured the woods for days, with dogs, drones, and volunteers. Posters went up. News crews came. But Lily Hartley had vanished without a trace. No signs of struggle, no footprints beyond the clearing, no trail to follow. It was as if she had stepped into thin air. And the worst part? Jake had been the last one to see her. The guilt wrapped around him like vines, tightening more each day she didn't return. From that moment on, nothing was ever the same. The Hartleys stopped having picnics. Laughter felt too loud. Springtime brought more sorrow than joy. Lily's absence became a phantom haunting every family photo, every silence at the dinner table. For Jake, the ribbon never left his wrist. He tied it there the day after she vanished and vowed he would find her, somehow, someday. Even if no one else believed it, he knew the forest had secrets, and it had taken something that belonged to him. The weeks that followed Lily's disappearance were like living in a nightmare that refused to end. The Hartley home, once filled with warmth and shared meals, fell into a suffocating silence. Lily's room remained untouched, her bed still made with the pink quilt Grandma stitched for her 6th birthday, her collection of glittery plastic tiaras still sitting on the dresser. Her mother, Diane, couldn't bring herself to walk past the doorway without breaking down. She slept on the living room couch, often waking with tear-streaked cheeks and a photo of Lily clutched to her chest. Her father, Alan, threw himself into the search at first, organizing community efforts, coordinating with police, even hiring a private investigator when the official search dwindled. But after months without a single lead, his energy collapsed into quiet despair. He stopped shaving, stopped talking much, stopped looking people in the eye. Jake watched it all from the corner of his own grief. He blamed himself more than he let on. His parents tried to comfort him, but their reassurances felt empty. It wasn't your fault, they would say over and over again. But he had been there. He had seen her go into the trees. He should have followed. He should have screamed louder. He should have run faster. These thoughts looped endlessly in his mind, becoming the backdrop of his childhood. At school, Jake changed. The easygoing, talkative boy faded into someone quieter, more guarded. He stopped telling jokes. He stopped playing soccer. He started avoiding the woods altogether. The forest, once a place of fairy tales and magic, now felt cursed. Even teachers noticed. "You've grown up too fast," one counselor told him during a parent-teacher conference. Jake just nodded. What was there to say? Each year, on the anniversary of the picnic, the Hartleys held a candlelight vigil in the meadow where Lily disappeared. Neighbors would come, bringing flowers and folding chairs. A local pastor would say a few solemn words. Jake hated those vigils, not because he didn't care, but because everyone else had moved into acceptance. They spoke of Lily in past tense. Jake never could. "She's out there," he would whisper to himself at night. "She has to be." By the time Jake turned 17, his relationship with the family had shifted. He was still close to his parents, but there was a quiet distance between him and Lily's side of the family. Diane and Alan had started attending support groups for parents of missing children, and though they never stopped loving Jake, their pain made it hard to be around him. He reminded them of that day, of what was lost. Sometimes Diane would glance at him with this vacant stare, as if she was seeing the picnic unfold all over again. Jake understood, but still hurt. One night, Jake found himself back at the meadow. It wasn't planned. He had been riding his bike along the old trail, headphones in, trying to forget the world for a while. But his tires had led him there, as if his heart still remembered the way. The grass was taller now, more unruly. The logs where they used to sit were rotting at the edges, moss creeping over the wood like a slow reclaiming. He stood in the middle of it all, the wind stirring through the trees, and suddenly he dropped to his knees. 6 years of silence, 6 years of guilt and wondering and grief finally broke him. He cried, loud, body-shaking sobs that no one heard but the forest. When the tears dried, he sat back, staring at the tree line. "I'm sorry, Lily," he whispered, his voice raw. "I'm still looking. I'll always be looking." He didn't know then that the forest had been listening, that it wasn't finished with the Hartleys or with Jake, that something hidden deep within those trees still held the truth, a truth waiting to be found. The seasons passed, and while the world around him changed, friends grew taller, schools transitioned, and childhood slowly melted into adulthood, Jake Hartley remained anchored to a moment in time. No matter how far he traveled from that spring day, no matter how hard he tried to focus on new beginnings, Lily's absence clung to him like a second skin. She was always there, in the laughter of a girl on the bus, in the echo of children playing in the park, in the quiet space beside him during family gatherings that should have felt whole but never did. Jake's guilt didn't fade with time. It evolved. When he was younger, it was a sharp, panicked ache that woke him up at night and left him breathless. Now, at 17, it had become something deeper, an unshakable weight that dulled the color of life. It wasn't just about that day anymore. It was about every day after it. Every day he hadn't found her. Every year he grew older while Lily remained forever 8 in his memory. He had tried to bury the guilt. He really had. He joined clubs, thrown himself into academics, dated once or twice, smiled when he needed to, but nothing ever stuck. Nothing could outrun the silence that followed him home or the haunting sound of her laughter that still played in his head, crystal clear after all this time. It was worse at night. That was when he'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, fingers brushing the worn pink ribbon he still tied around his wrist. Her ribbon. He never took it off. It had faded now, frayed at the ends, but to Jake, it was sacred. A reminder. A vow. Some nights he would sketch. He wasn't a great artist, but drawing helped keep his mind busy. The pages of his notebooks were filled with forests, twisting trees, shadowy trails, imagined maps of hidden groves and secret doorways. Sometimes he drew Lily too, as he remembered her, standing with a crooked crown of dandelions, or chasing butterflies barefoot. It was both a comfort and a curse, because the more he drew, the clearer she became, and the harder it was to accept the void where she used to be. People around him had stopped talking about her. Even his parents, though still supportive, didn't bring Lily up anymore unless he did first. Jake couldn't blame them. Grief changes people. It hardens some, silences others. But for Jake, the silence was unbearable. He needed to talk about her, needed to keep her memory alive. So he began documenting everything he could remember from the day she vanished. Not just the picnic, but the weather, the layout of the meadow, the direction she ran, the look in her eyes before she disappeared. He poured it all into a leather-bound journal he kept hidden in his desk drawer. He also began researching the forest. Evergreen Trail had been part of the county park for decades, but the deeper woods surrounding it had a more mysterious past. Local legends spoke of strange disappearances and eerie sightings, stories Jake used to laugh off. But now they haunted him. Could Lily's vanishing have been more than just a tragic accident? Had they missed something? Had the forest hidden a secret all along? His obsession grew quietly. He started hiking alone again, venturing farther and deeper into the woods than he ever had before. He followed deer paths and animal trails, marked trees with chalk, mapped routes on his phone. Each time, he hoped for a sign, a footprint, a piece of clothing, a sound in the distance. Anything, but the forest gave him nothing. Just the creak of branches, the hush of leaves, and the endless gnawing silence. Still, he returned, again and again, because something inside him whispered that the truth hadn't been lost, just hidden, waiting. And Jake Hartley, racked with guilt and driven by a promise no one else had heard, wasn't ready to stop looking. Not until he found her. Not until he knew. The summer of Jake's 17th year brought with it a strange kind of pull. The air was heavier, the trees darker, and something in his chest wouldn't let him rest. The guilt had not subsided, but something else had begun to stir, curiosity sharpened by desperation. Jake had spent years avoiding Evergreen Trail, fearing it like a haunted graveyard. But now, it called to him like a forgotten melody. He didn't tell anyone, not even his parents. He just packed a backpack, flashlight, water bottle, notepad, compass, and Lily's ribbon, and returned. The forest felt unchanged, as if time itself had been paused beneath the thick canopy. The trail markers still hung nailed to the trees, faded but readable. The old wooden bridge still creaked underfoot. Birds chirped overhead, squirrels darted through brush, and wildflowers nodded lazily in the breeze. But beneath that surface beauty, Jake sensed something different, an undercurrent of watchfulness, like the woods were no longer passive terrain, but a living entity observing his return. He reached the meadow by mid-morning, that same patch of open grass where the picnic had taken place 6 years ago. Tom had not been kind to it. The once green field had grown wild and uneven, weeds choking the soft clover and wild daisies. The picnic logs were now half sunken into the soil, overrun with ivy and moss. He stood there for a long time, heart racing, scanning the edge of the forest where Lily had vanished. Jake walked to the very spot where she had run into the trees. He remembered her voice, her giggle, the flash of her yellow dress. He closed his eyes and let the moment replay in his mind. Then he stepped forward, beyond the imaginary boundary that had kept him at bay all these years. The first thing he noticed was how much denser the woods became after the first few steps. The trees grew closer together, their trunks thick with age, bark layered with lichens and creeping vines. The ground was soft with years of fallen leaves, and shafts of sunlight pierced the canopy in thin golden lines. He followed no trail this time, choosing instead to wander freely, guided by instinct and memory. For hours he walked. He marked trees with chalk as he passed, careful to leave breadcrumbs in case he needed to find his way back. Occasionally, he paused to listen. The woods were alive with sound, the distant call of a hawk, the rustle of branches, the hum of insects, but nothing unusual. Still, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Not by animals, but by something else. Something ancient. Around midday, he stumbled upon something strange. A ring of stones, half buried in the earth, forming a perfect circle no more than 3 feet wide. They were old, worn smooth by weather and time, but clearly placed with intention. Jake crouched beside it, brushing away dirt and leaves. It didn't look like a campsite, and there were no signs of human disturbance nearby. It felt ceremonial, almost sacred. Jake opened his notebook and sketched the stone ring, labeling it found in northern quadrant of forest. Possibly significant. He wasn't sure why, but something in his gut told him this was important. He pressed Lily's ribbon into the page before closing the book and slipping it back into his bag. By late afternoon, he knew he had to turn back. The forest was vast, and though he had mapped his path with care, it would be dangerous to stay after dark. Still, as he retraced his steps, something inside him had shifted. The fear that once kept him away had transformed into a determination to return. This forest held secrets. It had swallowed Lily whole. And for the first time, Jake felt like he was beginning to understand the shape of the question he needed to ask. As he emerged from the trees and saw the familiar trailhead, his phone buzzed with a low battery warning. He hadn't received a single message all day. It didn't matter. He wasn't ready to explain this to anyone yet. Not until he found more. Not until the forest gave him something real. And deep in his bones, Jake knew it would. Jake returned to the forest the very next morning, long before the sun had fully risen. The sky was still a soft gray, the air damp with dew, and silence stretched across the woods like a heavy blanket. He barely slept the night before. His thoughts kept spiraling. Images of the stone circle, of Lily's laughter fading into the trees, of questions that had no answers. But one thing pulsed loudest through his mind. He had to go back. Something was waiting for him out there. Something that had been hidden too long. He followed the chalk markings he'd left behind the day before, carefully retracing his steps deeper into the forest. When he reached the stone circle, he paused again. It looked exactly as he left it. Still, undisturbed. But this time, he walked past it, moving in the same direction Lily had once vanished toward. It was risky, venturing beyond his known trail, but Jake didn't hesitate. He trusted his instincts now more than ever. The trees thickened the farther he went. Vines hung low like curtains. Branches clawed at his sleeves. The sun barely penetrated the canopy, casting the forest floor in a dim, greenish hue. Hours passed. Jake made note of strange features as he moved. Claw-like marks on trees, large mushrooms shaped like twisted horns, and once a single white feather lying unnaturally in the center of a moss-covered log. He didn't touch anything, just observed, documented. And then he saw it, his first clue. It was subtle at first, just a scrap of yellow fabric fluttering gently in a low bush. Jake's heart stopped. He stepped closer, knees trembling. The fabric was worn, frayed at the edges, stained with time and possibly dirt. But unmistakably, it matched the color of Lily's dress from that day. That perfect sunshine yellow she had loved so much. Jake reached out slowly and took it into his hands. It was small, perhaps torn from a sleeve or the bottom hem, but it was real. He stood frozen for a moment, trying to breathe through the shock. After 6 years, he finally had something tangible. Tears welled in his eyes, but he blinked them away. Not now. He couldn't lose focus. He carefully folded the fabric and placed it in a zippered pocket of his backpack, securing it as though it were made of glass. The bush where the scrap had been snagged looked partially trampled, the ground beneath it disturbed. Jake knelt down and scanned the soil. That's when he noticed it. A faint indentation, too small to be his, too recent to be 6 years old. It looked like the front of a shoe, narrow, childlike. His breath hitched. Could it be hers? Could Lily have come back here? Or had she never left? He stood up and scanned the woods ahead. Something had changed in the atmosphere. The forest no longer felt still. It hummed with anticipation, like it was holding its breath. Jake pulled out his notebook and jotted down the exact location, adding notes about the fabric and the footprint. He circled the words 3 times. Possible contact point. Evidence found. Proceed with caution. Jake pressed on. He didn't know how long he wandered, but the light was shifting again. Evening was coming, and with it the cold. He had promised himself he wouldn't stay out after dark, but the discovery of the fabric had reignited something powerful in him. Hope. Raw and dangerous. He wanted to believe it could be real, that maybe Lily had left this clue for him. Maybe she was alive. Maybe she was waiting. But eventually, the growing shadows forced him to turn back. As he retraced his steps, he marked the tree nearest to the bush with an L and a star beside it. Then he whispered, as if she could hear him, "I'm coming back. I'm not giving up." By the time he emerged from the forest, the sky was ablaze with streaks of orange and purple. Jake stood at the trailhead for a long moment, the scrap of yellow fabric like fire in his mind. For the first time in 6 years, he had something more than memory. He had proof, and he knew, without a shadow of doubt, that he was closer than ever. Jake didn't sleep that night. The image of the yellow fabric haunted him, fluttering over and over again in his mind like a flag of forgotten truth. He replayed every moment of the day, the bush where he found the scrap, the strange footprint, the ring of stones, even the subtle shift in the forest's air. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was on the edge of something monumental. And if he wanted answers, he needed to go deeper. At dawn, he returned. No hesitation, no fear. Just purpose. The sun barely filtered through the clouds as he stepped back onto the evergreen trail, his boots crunching softly on gravel. His fingers traced the L he had carved into the tree the day before. He turned right this time, not toward the stone circle, but toward the direction where the scrap of Lily's dress had been caught. He moved with care, scanning every tree, every bush, every bend in the terrain. For over an hour, nothing seemed unusual, until something caught his eye. A tree stood about 30 feet ahead, older than most, its bark rough and wide but oddly marked. Not carved like initials or hearts. This was different. Vertical streaks of faint white, almost like old paint or chalk, lined the trunk in a deliberate pattern. Jake stepped closer and realized it wasn't paint. It was a series of symbols, simple lines, some crossed, some looped, etched, and filled with a soft, dusty powder. He reached out, gently brushing the edge of one. It crumbled slightly, as if it had been there for years but still held meaning. Jake's pulse quickened. He followed the markings, noticing that each tree along a subtle arc ahead bore the same strange symbols, like silent breadcrumbs leading somewhere unknown. And then the underbrush shifted. The dense brambles that had blocked his way the day before now appeared, parted. Not crushed or broken, but carefully pushed aside like someone or something had moved through recently. Without thinking, he ducked under the first low branch and followed the line of marked trees. The path wasn't a traditional trail. There was no dirt road, no trodden grass, but there was a rhythm to the forest here, almost like the trees themselves leaned in a certain direction, creating a faint corridor of space between them. Jake moved quietly, heart pounding in his ears. Birds had gone silent. The air cooled, carrying a scent of damp moss and something else, something older. After several minutes of walking, Jake saw it. The path opened into a narrow clearing, almost completely hidden from view. In the center stood a rock formation, flat stones stacked unnaturally, forming a small altar-like structure. Carvings, similar to the symbols on the trees, ran along the edges. And behind it, a narrow crevice between 2 cliffs, so well concealed by hanging ivy and shadows that he almost missed it. But once he saw it, he knew. This was it, a hidden passage. Jake stood frozen at its mouth. The space between the cliffs wasn't wide, maybe 3 feet across, but it extended deep into the rock, bending slightly to the left as it disappeared into darkness. The air that flowed from it was cooler, almost damp, and carried a scent that reminded Jake of earth and time, of places untouched by modern light. He took a cautious step forward, then another, ducking into the crevice. As he moved deeper, the sounds of the forest faded behind him. The walls closed in, and he switched on his flashlight. The beam revealed more of the same ancient carvings, etched along the stone walls like forgotten stories. Some looked like eyes, others resembled hands. All of them pulsed with quiet warning. Jake didn't know where this path would lead, but he knew it was connected to Lily, somehow. The forest had guarded this secret for 6 long years. And now, for reasons he didn't fully understand, it was finally revealing it. He whispered her name one more time into the stone shadows. "Lily, I'm coming." And with that, he stepped into the unknown. The passage swallowed Jake whole. As he stepped into the narrow crevice, the outside world faded behind him, the forest's light vanishing like the last flicker of a dying flame. Cold stone pressed close on either side, rough and ancient. His flashlight cast long, uncertain shadows that danced with every step he took. Dust filled the air, and the silence was unnerving. No birds, no insects, not even the rustle of leaves. Just Jake's own breath, loud and shallow, and the quiet crunch of gravel beneath his boots. He moved slowly, every muscle tense, his eyes darting from wall to wall. The strange symbols continued to line the passage, becoming denser the farther he went. Some were large, etched deeply into the stone like warnings. Others were faint, delicate, almost reverent, like someone had left them behind as whispers of a forgotten truth. There were eyes, always eyes, carved again and again, as if the walls themselves had watched something for far too long. Jake reached out and touched one of the markings. The stone was icy. A shiver ran through his fingers, up his arm, and into his chest. The sensation wasn't entirely fear. It was something else. Something familiar, like the stone was remembering him, or perhaps remembering her. He pressed forward, heart hammering. Then came the sound. Faint. So faint he thought he imagined it at first. A soft, hollow tone, like a whisper through a cracked door. Jake froze. He held his breath. The sound came again, this time clearer. A voice. A girl's voice. It was not a cry, not a scream. It was a hum, a quiet, haunting melody drifting through the stone like a memory. His blood turned to ice. "Lily," he whispered. The hum stopped. Jake took a step forward, then another, chasing the echo into the bend of the tunnel. The flashlight beam quivered in his hand. The passage grew wider, opening into a small chamber just beyond the curve. The walls here were smoother, more deliberate. Stone benches lined the edges, and in the center was a circular pattern carved into the floor, like the stone circle above ground, but more intricate. Symbols spiraled outward in a ring, ending in an unbroken chain of glyphs that seemed to glow faintly when touched by light. He stood at the edge, not daring to enter the circle. The air in the chamber felt different, thick with energy, like something sacred had once happened here. Jake whispered again, louder this time. "Lily, if you're here, say something." For a moment, nothing. Then another sound. This time, not a hum, but a whisper. Soft, childlike, echoing from the far side of the chamber. "Jake!" He spun, flashlight scanning the shadows. "Lily!" His voice cracked with disbelief. Silence again. He ran to the corner where the voice had come from, but found only stone. Nothing moved, nothing breathed, but the air still pulsed with the presence of something just out of reach, like he was seconds behind a vanishing ghost. Jake turned in slow circles, his mind racing. Was this place part of some old ritual site? A shrine? Was Lily taken here 6 years ago? Had she been held in this very chamber? Or had she left her voice behind? He pulled out his notebook and scribbled furiously. Echo chamber. Sound carries unnaturally. Heard her. Not imagination. She said my name. He drew the pattern on the floor, noting every curve, every symbol. Then he snapped photos with his phone, walls, benches, carvings. Everything. As he turned to leave, his flashlight flickered once, then again. The hum returned, faint but deliberate, from the tunnel ahead, the one he'd come through. Jake stood still, muscles frozen. Whatever was calling to him, it was leading him somewhere. And despite the fear curling in his stomach, despite the goosebumps rising across his skin, he knew he couldn't walk away now. He was no longer just searching for Lily's memory. He was following her voice. Jake retraced his steps slowly, flashlight in hand, heart thudding with a mixture of fear and resolve. The tunnel behind him still echoed faintly with the hum, no longer continuous, but drifting in and out like a fragile thread of memory on the verge of vanishing. Every so often, he would pause and listen, hoping for another whisper of his name. Nothing came, but the air around him felt charged now, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. As he moved back into the narrower passage, his light swept across a section of the stone he hadn't noticed before. It was smoother than the rest, flat and deliberate. Not natural rock, but almost like a tablet embedded into the wall. Jake stopped. A symbol caught his eye, one different from the others. It was shaped like a flower with 7 petals, encased in a circle. His heart skipped. That was Lily's favorite drawing. She had doodled that exact symbol on napkins, notebooks, even her backpack. He still remembered how she once called it her lucky starflower, a shape she insisted protected her. Jake ran his fingers over the carving. It wasn't just familiar, it was hers. Somehow, her mark had found its way into this buried passage. He crouched lower, shining his flashlight across the surface of the stone slab. More carvings emerged, crude, childlike drawings, etched with something sharp but weak. There was a figure of a girl, a sun overhead, and a tree with long, twisting branches. Below it, words were carved, jagged and uncertain, but legible. "My name is Lily. I'm still here." Jake's breath caught in his throat. She had been here, in this exact place, alone, afraid, and yet, somehow, strong enough to leave a message behind. He could almost see her small hands trembling as she scratched those words into stone, her fingers scraped and dirty, her voice echoing into the dark with no one to hear. His chest tightened. He reached into his backpack and pulled out the yellow fabric scrap. He held it next to the carving. The colors matched. She'd been wearing that same dress when she vanished. There was no doubt anymore. Lily hadn't disappeared randomly. She'd been taken here, hidden, or worse, held. Jake stood, his hands trembling now too, not from fear, but from the overwhelming emotion welling up in his chest. He looked around again. What kind of place was this? Who built it? And why was a child able to get so deep without being found for 6 years? More drawings dotted the stone farther down the wall. One showed a spiral, another a figure with what looked like long arms reaching out from the shadows. Another had a pair of eyes, larger than the rest, carved over and over again. A warning, perhaps, or something she had seen, experienced. He snapped pictures of everything. Then he saw the arrow, a simple line scratched beneath the starflower symbol, pointing deeper into the tunnel. Jake didn't hesitate. He adjusted his flashlight, took a breath, and followed it. The air grew colder, damper, and the wall seemed to shift subtly the deeper he went. What had started as crude tunnels now began to resemble chambers, cut with unnatural symmetry, too clean to be formed by erosion. He passed a wall lined with faint handprints, small, like a child's. Some overlapped, some pressed deeper than others. All of them pointed forward. Jake whispered into the darkness, "Lily, I'm following. I see you." He wasn't just exploring anymore. He was walking a path she had once walked. Every step was a step through time, through fear, through the courage of a little girl who had refused to be forgotten. Somewhere ahead, there were more answers, more signs, and Jake was determined to find them. Because now he believed something with all his heart. Lily hadn't just left behind a message. She had left a trail. Jake followed the carved arrow deeper into the earth, the air thickening around him with every step. The musty scent of damp stone clung to his clothes, and the silence had evolved into something denser, something that felt alive. His flashlight beam flickered against the walls, revealing more symbols, more etchings, and every now and then, another childlike drawing. A flower, a sun, A tear-shaped eye, always the same symbols, repeated like a forgotten language. Jake felt like he was moving through a dream, or perhaps a nightmare someone else had endured for far too long. Then he saw it. Up ahead, the tunnel widened abruptly into a large chamber, much larger than any room he had seen so far. His footsteps slowed, heart racing. The walls of a room were curved, the ceiling arched like the inside of a dome, and every inch of stone had been marked with strange, deliberate symbols. The glow from his flashlight revealed thick beams of wood bracing the entrance, aged and splintered but still intact. He stepped inside cautiously, his boots crunching on a layer of dry earth and stone dust. And then he saw the bed. In the far corner, half hidden behind a partition of stacked stones, was a small wooden cot. The mattress was little more than a slab of cloth and hay, matted and moldy with time. Next to it, a rusted tin bowl, a broken comb, and what looked like a child's blanket, faded yellow with a floral print. His knees weakened. It was the same fabric from the scrap he'd found in the forest clearing. No doubt now, Lily had slept here, lived here, or worse, been held here. Jake crossed the room slowly, eyes scanning every detail. There were scratches on the wall beside the bed, vertical lines grouped in sets of 5. Dozens of them. A child's way of marking time. She'd counted the days. Maybe weeks. Maybe months. His fingers trembled as he traced them. 63. That was the number carved deepest. Then the mark stopped. Jake's stomach twisted. What happened after 63 days? Was she moved? Escaped? Or something worse? He turned to the other side of the room and found a crate filled with more scraps of fabric, torn papers, and a small notebook with a cracked spine. He opened it, the pages yellowed and water-stained, but the handwriting was unmistakably a child's. Some of the pages were filled with nonsense, scribbled letters and stick figures. Others had actual words. I don't know where I am. He comes at night. The door makes noise. I pretend I'm asleep. I miss Mommy. I think Jake will find me. His heart shattered. He sat there for a long time, the notebook open in his lap, the silence pressing against his skin like a weight. This was no longer a mystery. This was real. Lily had been here, imprisoned, alone, afraid. She had survived for at least 2 months underground, held in this chamber. And somehow, she had kept hope alive. She believed he would find her. He whispered aloud, his voice cracking. I'm here, Lily. I found you. He rose, determination surging in his chest like fire. The back of the chamber had a narrow corridor, partially collapsed, its entrance hidden behind a curtain of moss and hanging roots. He hadn't noticed it at first, but now it called to him, like the next page of a story he hadn't finished reading. Jake cleared the debris carefully, prying away broken stones and moldy wood until the opening revealed a darker passage. He shined his light into it and saw something strange, reflections on the floor. Water, but more than that, footprints. Small, barefoot impressions in the damp stone, faint but visible. They led deeper, disappearing around the bend of the corridor. Jake's heart pounded. Lily had left this room. She had walked this path. Alone, maybe, or guided. He stepped into the new corridor, one hand on the wall, the other holding the flashlight steady. Wherever this trail led, he was ready, because she hadn't just survived. She tried to lead him to the truth. Jake stepped cautiously into the narrow corridor, the damp stone beneath his boots cold and slippery. The light from his flashlight danced along the walls, illuminating ancient carvings and moss-covered stones. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of earth and decay, but also with something more, a lingering trace of life, of presence. The footprints on the floor, faint but unmistakable, pulled him forward like a magnet, as if Lily's very spirit was guiding him through this forgotten place. Each step echoed softly, blending with the distant drip of water somewhere deeper inside the tunnel. Jake's mind raced, filled with questions that clawed at his thoughts. Who had built this hidden labyrinth? Why had Lily been kept here? And if she had managed to walk this path before him, where had she gone? The footprints suddenly veered sharply to the left, leading into a small chamber that appeared less dilapidated than the rest of the tunnel system. Inside the chamber, Jake found a small wooden box, worn but intact. His hands trembled as he opened it, revealing a collection of objects. A faded photograph of a smiling family, a locket with a tiny picture inside, and a carefully folded note. The note was written in neat, childish handwriting. "Dear Jake, if you find this, please know I am safe. I am waiting for you." His heart ached. This was Lily's message, hope etched in ink and paper, a lifeline thrown across the years. But it also raised more questions. Who had helped her write this note? Had she been rescued and then hidden again? Or had she managed to hide herself, hoping to be found? Determined to find answers, Jake pressed on, following the footprints deeper into the tunnels. The path twisted and turned, leading him through chambers filled with old toys, scattered drawings, and signs of life that seemed to have been abandoned in a hurry. It was as if someone had lived here, hidden away from the world, surviving on scraps and sheer willpower. As he rounded a corner, Jake's flashlight beam caught a faint glow emanating from beneath a pile of rocks. With effort, he cleared the debris to reveal a small hatch in the floor. The edges were worn, but the latch itself looked sturdy and unused for years. His hands shook as he lifted the hatch, revealing a narrow stairway descending into darkness. Jake took a deep breath and began his descent, each step echoing into the unknown. The air grew cooler, the silence deeper, until he reached a cavernous room lit by faint shafts of light filtering through cracks above. In the center of the room stood a makeshift bed, blankets strewn about, and a small table cluttered with drawings and notes. It was a secret sanctuary. Jake's eyes scanned the walls, where more symbols were carved, this time clearer and more deliberate. Among them was the starflower symbol, Lily's lucky charm, surrounded by a circle of names, possibly other children or guardians. It was a map of memories, a tapestry of survival and hope woven in stone. Suddenly, Jake heard a faint rustling behind him. His heart jumped as he swung his flashlight around, revealing a figure standing in the shadows. A young woman stepped forward, her eyes wide with recognition and relief. "Jake," she whispered, "you found me." It was Lily. The girl who had disappeared 6 years ago was alive, standing before him, trembling but unbroken. Tears streamed down both their faces as they embraced, the years of pain and uncertainty melting away in that single moment. Jake knew the journey was far from over, but now, hope had a face and a name. The moment Jake recognized Lily standing in the shadowed sanctuary, a surge of emotion overwhelmed him. Time seemed to stretch and blur as years of uncertainty and fear gave way to an impossible reunion. Her eyes, once filled with silent despair, now shimmered with a fragile hope. She stepped forward hesitantly, reaching out as if to confirm that this was real, that her cousin, the boy she had trusted, had truly found her. Tears welled in Jake's eyes as he wrapped his arms around her. The years apart, the countless sleepless nights filled with questions and fear, suddenly collapsed into a moment of pure relief. "Lily," he whispered, voice cracking, "I thought I'd never find you." She clung to him, trembling but alive, her small frame fragile yet determined. As they settled in the sanctuary, Lily began to share her story. Broken pieces of memory and survival, stitched together with the innocence and courage of a child forced to grow up too fast. She spoke of being taken during the picnic, hidden deep within the forest tunnels by a man she only knew as the Watcher. He was cruel, controlling, but she had found ways to stay hidden, to survive by learning the secret paths and using the symbols carved in the stone walls as guides. She described the long days spent alone, counting the scratches on the walls and dreaming of rescue. She revealed how, when the Watcher grew careless, she managed to slip away, leaving clues in the form of drawings and notes, hoping someone would find her. Her voice faltered as she recounted the nights filled with fear, but also the moments of bravery that kept her going. Jake listened intently, the weight of her experience sinking deep into his heart. This was more than a rescue. It was a testament to human resilience, to the strength of hope in the face of darkness. He promised her he would get her out, reunite her with their family, and bring the Watcher to justice. But as they prepared to leave the sanctuary, Lily hesitated, her eyes fixed on a hidden alcove where a small wooden box lay partially buried under dust. Inside were documents, maps, notes, and a journal belonging to the Watcher himself. The journal revealed chilling details of other children he had captured, hidden away in different parts of the forest. The revelation was staggering. Lily's disappearance was part of something much larger and more sinister. They weren't just dealing with one missing girl. They were uncovering a network of secrets, dark enough to shake their entire community. Jake looked at Lily, determination blazing in his eyes. "We have to stop him," he said firmly. "We have to find the others." Her nod was resolute. Together, they stepped out of the sanctuary, ready to face whatever lay ahead, bound by a newfound hope and the unbreakable bond of family. The journey to bring light to the shadows was just beginning. As Jake and Lily emerged from the shadowed sanctuary, the weight of their discovery pressed heavily upon them. The quiet forest around them seemed more sinister now, concealing secrets far darker than anyone could have imagined. The journal they carried revealed a terrifying truth. Lily's captivity was only one thread in a vast, hidden network of tunnels and chambers scattered beneath the woods, used to imprison other missing children over the years. Each child had left behind marks, drawings, and desperate clues, hoping someone would find them. Jake's mind raced as he flipped through the journal's pages. The Watcher, the man who had taken Lily, wasn't acting alone. The notes spoke of accomplices, hidden paths branching in every direction, and coded symbols meant to confuse and mislead. It was a secret operation designed to evade detection, deep beneath the surface of their peaceful town. Lily clung to Jake's arm, her eyes wide but fierce. "We have to tell someone," she said, her voice trembling with urgency. "We can't let him hurt anyone else." But Jake knew the danger of revealing the truth too soon. The tunnels were a labyrinth, and they had no idea who else might be watching, waiting to silence them. They decided to start with the local authorities, but privately, with a trusted few who could help them plan a rescue. Jake reached out to Sarah, a detective who had never given up on Lily's case. Her eyes widened when Jake showed her the journal and the photographs. She immediately mobilized a covert team to investigate the tunnels, coordinating with experts in search and rescue and forensic archaeology. Over the following days, Jake and Lily worked alongside the team, guiding them through the secret paths she had memorized during her captivity. Every corner of the forest became a battlefield between hope and fear, light and darkness. The tunnels revealed chilling artifacts, children's toys, scraps of clothing, and more cryptic symbols carved into the stone walls. The deeper they delved, the more horrifying the extent of the network became. Hidden rooms connected by twisting corridors, trapdoors covered by moss and dirt, and even underground water channels that made escape nearly impossible. But each discovery also brought hope, clues left by other children, some of whom might still be alive. One night, as the search intensified, Lily confided in Jake about a room she had only heard of, the heart of the network. It was the largest chamber, where the captors kept their most precious secrets, including records of the missing children and the locations of their hideouts. Accessing it could mean saving lives and ending the nightmare once and for all. Jake promised her they would find that room, no matter the cost. They prepared for the final descent, knowing the risks but driven by a determination that burned brighter than fear. The network was a trap designed to break spirits, but Jake and Lily were stronger than that. Together, they would unravel the mystery, expose the darkness, and bring the children home. As they moved forward into the depths of the forest once more, the weight of the past and the hope for the future intertwined, forging a path toward justice and healing. The air grew colder as Jake, Lily, and the rescue team descended deeper into the forest's secret underground labyrinth. Every step felt heavier, weighed down by the gravity of what lay ahead. The heart of the network was said to be a large cavernous chamber buried far beneath the roots of the ancient trees, hidden well enough that even years of searching above ground had failed to expose it. Yet Lily's memory guided them through the twisting tunnels, past pitfalls and traps designed to deter intruders. Jake's flashlight flickered as they rounded a bend, revealing a massive stone door carved with intricate symbols, some matching those in the journal. The group paused, the silence thick with anticipation. Sarah, the detective, carefully inspected the door, noting its ancient mechanism and the faint outlines of a locking system. It was clear this wasn't just a barrier. It was a vault meant to keep secrets buried forever. With Lily's help, they deciphered the symbols, each one representing a child who had been held captive. Carefully, they triggered the mechanism, and with a low rumble, the heavy door slowly creaked open, revealing a vast chamber illuminated by shafts of light filtering through cracks above. The air was stale but carried a haunting sense of history, of suffering, and of hope. Inside, rows of old crates, dusty files, and faded photographs lined the walls, evidence of a sinister operation that had thrived in the shadows. Jake's eyes scanned the room until they found what they'd been looking for: a large ledger, meticulously kept, listing names, dates, and locations. Each entry was a chilling reminder of the children who had vanished over the years. As Sarah and her team began cataloging the evidence, Lily found a small alcove containing drawings made by the children, depicting scenes of captivity, escape attempts, and dreams of freedom. These innocent sketches were powerful testaments to the resilience of those who had suffered here. One drawing caught Jake's attention: a map with an X marked deep in the forest, labeled Safe Place. Realizing this could be a lead to rescue the remaining children, Jake and the team prepared to follow it. But just as they were about to leave the chamber, a noise echoed from the shadows, a faint but deliberate sound of footsteps approaching. The team tensed, flashlights sweeping the dark corners. Suddenly, a figure emerged, a man with cold eyes, the unmistakable presence of the Watcher. He had returned, and this time, he was ready to fight for his secrets. The confrontation was tense, words exchanged in whispers laced with menace. Jake stood firm, fueled by the memory of Lily's suffering and the hope of those still trapped. "The network ends here," Jake declared, voice steady despite the danger. The Watcher sneered, but knew his time was running out. Surrounded and outnumbered, he realized escape was impossible. With the villains subdued and the secrets exposed, the team began planning a coordinated rescue mission, using the map and evidence from the heart of the network. For the first time in years, there was a real chance to bring the missing children home and heal the wounds of the past. As they exited the chamber, Jake looked at Lily with renewed determination. Their journey was far from over, but the darkest chapter was closing. Together, they had uncovered the heart of a nightmare, and now they would fight to end it once and for all. With the evidence secured and the location of the hidden children marked on the map, Jake, Lily, and the rescue team prepared for what could be the most critical operation of their lives. The weight of responsibility was immense. Every step taken could mean the difference between life and death for those trapped in the sinister network beneath the forest. The community waited anxiously, holding their collective breath as the team set out before dawn, equipped with gear, medical supplies, and unwavering determination. Lily's knowledge was indispensable. As they navigated the twisting tunnels and treacherous paths, her memories of captivity guided them through dangerous traps and hidden chambers. Every corner was a reminder of the cruelty inflicted by the Watcher and his accomplices, but also a testament to the resilience and hope of the children. She pointed out markings on the walls, secret signals carved by the captives themselves to communicate and survive. The rescue team worked methodically, breaking through barriers and cautiously entering each chamber. Inside, they found children, some frightened, some weak from years of isolation, but all clinging to the hope that rescue would come. Each reunion was a mix of tears and joy, a healing of wounds long left open. Medical personnel tended to the children's physical needs, while counselors began the delicate process of addressing the psychological scars. Among those rescued was a boy named Sam, who, despite years underground, exhibited remarkable courage and a bright spark of hope. His story, like lilies, inspired the team and the community outside. As they moved through the network, the team discovered evidence of the Watcher's accomplices, hidden messages that hinted at their identities and locations, signaling the fight was not yet over. The mission was arduous, fraught with moments of danger as structural instability in the tunnels threatened to collapse paths and block escape routes. But the team persevered, driven by the voices of the children calling out for freedom. With each success, the network's dark hold weakened, and the light of hope grew stronger. As dawn broke over the forest, the last group of rescued children emerged from the underground labyrinth, blinking against the sunlight that had once felt like a distant dream. Families waited anxiously, embracing their lost loved ones with tears of relief and gratitude. Jake and Lily stood side by side, their bond unbreakable, knowing they'd changed lives forever. Though the rescue mission was a victory, the fight to bring the remaining captors to justice had just begun. But for now, the forest shadows were pierced by the light of reunion and renewal, a promise that no child would ever be forgotten again. In the aftermath of the daring rescue mission, the quiet town that had long been shadowed by the mysterious disappearances began to awaken to a new reality, a painful yet hopeful journey toward justice and healing. The evidence uncovered in the tunnels, combined with the testimonies of the rescued children and survivors, launched a sweeping investigation that sent shockwaves through the community and law enforcement agencies. The Watcher and his known associates were arrested, their dark network dismantled piece by piece, revealing the horrifying extent of their crimes. For Jake and Lily, the path forward was bittersweet. Though justice was being served, the scars of captivity ran deep. Many children faced the difficult process of relearning how to live outside the suffocating walls of their underground prisons. Therapists, social workers, and community members rallied to provide support, understanding that healing would take time, patience, and love. Lily, once a frightened girl hidden beneath the forest floor, gradually transformed into a symbol of resilience and hope. She shared her story openly, helping others find courage to face their pasts. Jake remained steadfast by her side, his role evolving from cousin and rescuer to protector and advocate. Together, they spoke at community forums, schools, and media events, determined to raise awareness and prevent such tragedies from recurring. Families reunited in emotional embraces, the weight of years apart lifted by the strength of love and forgiveness. The town organized memorials for those who had never returned, honoring their memories while celebrating the children who had survived. Slowly, the forest that once concealed horrors began to heal as well, with paths cleared and new growth symbolizing renewal. Yet, the shadows of the past lingered, a reminder that vigilance was necessary. The authorities continued their work, uncovering smaller pockets of resistance and ensuring the perpetrators faced full accountability. The community, once divided by fear and suspicion, united with a renewed commitment to protect its most vulnerable. For Jake and Lily, the experience changed them forever. The forest's secret path had led them through darkness but also toward light, toward a future where hope triumphed over fear and justice was more than a distant dream. Their bond, forged in the crucible of crisis, remained unbreakable, a testament to the power of family, courage, and the unyielding human spirit. As life slowly returned to normal, the town vowed never to forget the lessons learned beneath the canopy of ancient trees. The story of the missing girl who was found, and the cousin who refused to give up, became a beacon of hope for all who believed that even in the darkest moments, light could prevail. With the darkness of the past finally lifting, the town and its people faced the dawn of a new beginning, a future shaped by courage, resilience, and the promise of healing. Jake and Lily, once entwined in the shadows of tragic mystery, now stood as pillars of hope, embodying the strength found in perseverance and love. Their journey from despair to triumph became a story told and retold, inspiring not only their community but also countless others beyond the forest borders. The rescued children, now free, were slowly rebuilding their lives with the unwavering support of families, counselors, and neighbors. Each day brought new challenges, but also new victories. The first smile after years of silence, the first step toward independence, the first night spent without fear. Schools adapted to meet their needs, and special programs were established to help them integrate and flourish, turning trauma into opportunity. Jake, inspired by their progress, dedicated himself to advocacy and prevention. He collaborated with law enforcement, educators, and policymakers to create stronger safeguards against abduction and exploitation. His efforts led to the establishment of community watch programs, improved search and rescue protocols, and educational campaigns designed to empower children and parents alike. Jake knew the forest had taken much, but he was determined to ensure it could never take again. Lily, whose spirit had once been broken, blossomed into a young woman whose voice carried power and compassion. She spoke at conferences and support groups, sharing her story to break the silence surrounding abuse and captivity. Her courage encouraged others to come forward, fostering a network of survivors who uplifted one another. Through her work, she transformed pain into purpose, healing herself and helping others heal. The forest itself, once a place of fear and secrets, began to change. Local authorities designated the area as a protected site, installing markers and guided trails to honor those lost and celebrate those saved. Memorials were built near the picnic grounds where Lily had vanished, creating a space for reflection, remembrance, and renewal. Nature reclaimed its beauty, the trees standing tall as silent witnesses to a story of survival and hope. For Jake and Lily, life moved forward with newfound meaning. Their bond, forged in adversity, remained unbreakable, a testament to the power of family and the human spirit. They often returned to the forest, not to relive pain, but to honor strength and growth, to remind themselves and others that even after the darkest nights, the sun rises again. As the town healed, so did its people, united by a shared commitment to protect the innocent and nurture hope. The story of the missing girl who disappeared during a picnic and the cousin who never gave up became more than just a memory. It became a legacy, a shining example of courage, justice, and the promise of a new beginning. And so, beneath the canopy of ancient trees, where shadows once lingered, light now flourished, bright, enduring, and full of life. Thank you for following this story to its heartfelt conclusion. If you enjoyed this journey of mystery, courage, and hope, please like, share, and subscribe for more compelling stories.